Hello everyone, I'm DonTheCrown, and today I want to talk to you about setting up your characters for 4-3 and 5-3, because this is something that's really important if you wanted to get into groups for raids and pushing towards endgame, kind of having a general idea of what to be pushing your character towards, and so that you don't waste any money and so that you're not getting the wrong stuff. Because it's really important that you do have the right stats and you have the right engravings if you're looking to get into groups. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how I do this personally. Now I have 8 characters on NA East where I've geared up in Legion raids and above, and I've kind of found a couple little tricks that make things really simple. And so I recently just took my Shadow Hunter here from 4-3 to 5-3. So I have my 4-3 here with 1628 specialization. And then here with my 5-3, 1645 specialization with 5-3. And so I'm just going to kind of share with you the process about how I did both my 4-3 and my 5-3, and it should be something that you can easily duplicate for yourself. Now I'm going to drag down here a window that has my max roll profiles. I'll have a link to these down in the comments below. And I do recommend that you use some sort of engraving planner to help make it easier for you to track both your positive engravings and your negative engravings, because you don't necessarily want to get anything that's negative. And one more quick tip before we get started, you really do want to make sure that you're getting the right stats on all your accessories. So for example, as a Shadow Hunter here, I'm stacking specialization with crit only on my amulet, everything else is specialization. And so stats are really important. So don't cheap out with something that has endurance or expertise or domination. That's just not going to help you out in the long run. And so step one for me when I'm figuring out what to do for 4-3, and I've done this with a whole bunch of different characters, is figuring out what 4 engravings I want to go with. Now, obviously one of those is going to be my class engraving, but the other 3 can kind of change around a little bit. And then personally for me, I have plus 12 Curse Doll already set up, so I generally try to squeeze that in if it's a viable option. As you can see here, I've gone Keen Blunt, Curse Doll, Demonic Impulse, and Adrenaline. And I try to, next thing I do is set up so I have Book for 2 of those, and then my Stone has the other 2. So all 4 engravings are represented amongst these things. And I highly recommend doing +9 if you're class engraving, because generally class engravings are very expensive. And now, yes, I do know that legendary accessories do generally have their class engraving on them, but if you aren't 14-15, I don't really recommend spending almost any money at all on accessories and on really gearing up. The reason being is because right now Fion costs are through the moon. It's about 123 gold per Fion on US East, which means that each legendary accessory is going to have 1800 gold in Fion costs, which each relic accessory has 3000 gold in Fion costs. And that's just absolutely massive, and you don't really need to buy a whole bunch of gear at below 14-15. Now you can buy a piece or 2, but save yourself those Fions. You're going to need them later. So we've gone out, we've gotten our Book, and then we've gotten our Stone. For Stone, I highly recommend something that's 7-5 or better. And so you can be like, for example, here at 8-5, but or even 7-7 or something. But 7-5 is going to allow you to have a pretty decent setup that's going to be really easy. And so those are the first things I do. Is step 1, getting the books and getting the Stone set up. And then this is the part where a lot of people mess up, is that they do not go and buy a high quality amulet next. And the reason why this is important is because accessories have different ranges on their stats. A necklace here has, as legendary, 325 to 450 stats, whereas a relic has 400 to 500 stat, which is like 50 to 75 delta, which is already bigger than earring and ring at 30 to 45 and 20 to 30. However, necklaces also have 2 stats, not just 1, which means that the delta between a bad quality and a high quality between a legendary and relic is much bigger. So you want to make sure that you're getting yourself a high quality relic necklace. If you're getting anything else, you're probably setting yourself back, because stats do matter a lot. Just remember that you're also going to be getting an additional 10% of this from your pet, And so that's just a lot of stats to be missing out on. And so that's definitely step number 2, is going out and getting yourself a necklace. And this necklace needs to have a +5 on it. Now, since necklaces have those 2 stats, it's going to be a little bit harder to get a perfect one that has 5, 3, and both stats correctly. So this is why we're recommending just having that +5, and then one of those, the other engraving can just be like +3 or whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as it's not something that's going to like give you something bad, like enhanced shield or something. So yeah, definitely just high quality, 5, and you should be good to go there. Now, the next step is where I see a lot of people also mess up. Eventually, we're going to want to fill in our class engraving with 2 rings that have your class engraving on them with another +3. And I see a lot of people buy these next, which really forces them into getting very specific things. And once again, we're doing legendary rings because they have a lower stat cap than earrings. So what I recommend doing is instead focusing on your earrings next. And so here, if you have a +9 curse doll or whatever combat engraving you're doing, one of these needs to be 5/3, whereas the other one can be just +5. If you do have a +12 here, you can even kind of get very lucky and go and get yourself something that works together. Like here, for example, my destroyer has +1 or level 1 in adrenaline because both of the earrings had barricade and adrenaline, and that was almost no price increase for me to get that. But if you are at +9, you're going to need one of these to be 5/3 and the other one to be +5. And then once you have that, it's going to be really easy for you to figure out what 3/3 you need from your rings, and they're going to have to be 3/3. Make sure that you don't have any negatives. Now, one thing that I see a lot of people not doing when they're purchasing is when you're looking for accessories or just anything really, you can go and you can pin things to your interest list, and this will show the item until it's sold and even after it's sold. And this allows you to basically track things and look at a whole bunch of different variables all at the same time. And I always go and make sure that I'm tracking all the things that I'm kind of interested in, and then I narrow it down. This, for example, is what it took me to get to 5/3. Altogether, it was like, I think 72,000 gold or something. Someone could do the math with additional fiat cost, obviously. And yeah, so this is what I did. So let's talk now about doing 5/3. As you can see, these are the items I bought. And when we went from doing 4/3 to 5/3, the big thing was I had to go out and get +12 demonic impulse. It's practically impossible for you to get 5/3 without having +12 your class engraving. Now, I do know that you can get +5 accessories for your class engraving alongside them having a +3. It does make it very expensive, and I think that it's worth investing into your class engraving because you're going to want to basically have your books long term. This is a long-term thing that you'll have forever on that particular class, and it's pretty darn good to have. And so I went out and got these, and then I figured out what other 3 engravings I wanted to do. And so I knew I was going to do Adrenaline, Keen Blunt, and I was kind of between Grudge and Hitmaster, and I just realized that Hitmaster basically gives me about the same amount of damage, but with no negative, so I'm about that. I don't really enjoy Grudge personally. If you want to use Grudge, you can replace Hitmaster, you can replace Curse Doll here. It's not like, I'm not going to get into that debate. But on the stone, you're cutting one of the combination of the 3 things you got. So Keen Blunt, Adrenaline, Hitmaster. There's 3 different stones you can cut between the 3 of those. I just cut a whole bunch until I got lucky. You might have one where it's very expensive to buy one particular combination of stone, whereas the other 2 are cheaper. So I'd recommend maybe leaning that way, because with fiat costs, each fiat is going to cost you about 1,100 extra gold in just cutting a stone, and it can take you up to 20 to 30 to 40 stones to get lucky with a 7/7. You're going to want a 7/7. Now, one thing to note is that it's really important to use relic stones here because A, it's easier, and B, long term, you're going to be using this stone for a while, and you'll be able to upgrade it to ancient much later on in the game. So that's like basically step 1 and 2. Get your books sorted out, get your stone cut, and that might take a while. For my Berserker, this took like 28 stones or something. For my Shadow Hunter, it took 5. So just some RNG there. the next thing I recommend doing is going out and getting your class engraving piece. The reason for this is because this is probably going to be the most expensive or difficult piece for you to find, and you don't want to be in a situation, because I've seen this a lot, where you're looking for your class engraving piece as your last piece, and it needs to be a ring that has this right stat, and it also has to have this other engraving, because that's just never going to come up on the market, and very likely if it does, it's going to be very, very expensive, and you're going to be spending a lot of time just waiting and looking for it. So in this particular case, I went out and I got a +3/+3 necklace. Now you might be like, whoa, +3/+3, isn't that going to mess up your 5/3? Well, if you have +12/+12 and +7 or 7/7 stone, this allows you to have either 1+3 that's completely bad, or 1/5 that is like a 3 or a little bit lower, a 3 or a 4, sorry. And so that is definitely, that's one of the nice things about doing this particular setup. On my Berserker, I went out and I got myself a ring that had +3 Mayhem, +3 Keen Blunt, and this saved me so much money, because trying to get a +3 Mayhem with +5 any good Berserker engraving is so much money. Way more money than I spent on all of the rest of the gear, and so I highly recommend this being your very first piece. I cannot stress it enough. And from that point, I went out and I got a necklace. And so in this particular case, you see that this necklace actually is really low quality. However, if you pay a little bit of attention and you look a little bit closer, you'll notice that the crit stat on there is very high, whereas the swiftness is very low. And this is because necklaces are very different than the other accessory pieces you can buy. And what I mean by that is your quality doesn't always dictate how high a stat is on there, because there's two of them. So instead of looking by quality percentage for necklaces, you can type directly in here to see, I want 490 specialization, for example. And you can see that there's qualities here from 98% all the way down to 53%. You probably even go even lower than this. And so this allows you to have a much wider range of options when it comes to necklaces. And that's one of the things I recommend going for next. Just having Raid Captain Keen Blunt, for me personally, Crit Swift was pretty expensive at the time. I could probably look into replacing this now, especially since I have the two 5/3s I've been looking to get, but it's not super duper important to me. And then from there, you should probably have 1 to 2 pieces done with 3 more to go. And using your tracker, it should be pretty easy to figure out exactly what you need to buy next. For me personally, I had bought the necklace, and then I threw a whole bunch of rings and earrings into the interest list to try to like mix and match a whole bunch of different stuff to figure out what combinations I could do to get high quality and also not get a negative engraving. I ended up having a huge amount of them in here. I just slowly eliminated them out, and I was able to even go, because one of my 5s turned into a 3, it means that I could turn another 5 into a 4, and then this is just how it all came out. And so I was able to buy just the perfect stuff. It was way cheaper. I had everything on my interest list ready to go. And once I had it narrowed down to these 4 pieces, I made sure to put it in the calculator one last time to make sure everything was okay. And then I went through and just bought 1, 2, 3, 4. I knew exactly the ones I was going to get. I didn't make any mistakes. I put on everything. I was really, really excited. And then I looked at my engravings and it looked like this, because I forgot to switch my stone. So yeah, definitely you don't want to get in a situation where you put on all your gear and it's messed up. That's what happened to me. And I was like, oh no, it was just because of a stone. And so definitely go and use this method. Hope it helps you out in a lot of different ways. And there's definitely a lot of ways to like get this puzzle to work, but this is what has worked for me consistently. Like I've said, I've geared out a whole bunch of different characters. If you look at my list here, like all of these characters here have all been geared up to at least 4/3, a lot of them above, and especially using that trick where you can use the earring with a 5 and then a 3 of an extra thing like adrenaline or spirit absorption has helped out a bunch of these characters. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below, and come by the stream. Peace.